what I was talking about was a technique to move your point of perception, right? And this is a specific technique that is based on a specific approach to coming out of the orientation that you're in your body and coming out of the limited understanding you have of what you are, that's based specifically on the teachings of a famous guru by the name of Nisargadatta. And his guru told him, pay attention to the I am. Just stay with your attention on the I am at all times. And that was the only instruction his guru gave him. And then his guru died. And for the next few years, that's what he practiced, with absolute conviction that it was correct and trusted the words of his guru. And then he came to the full realization of who he was and experience of who he was. So what I'm talking about here is that technique of paying attention to the I am. Now, when I say the I am, what I'm referring to and what he was referring to is consciousness before the identity, right? In other words, when you were a baby, at some point very early on, right, it became apparent to the baby that the baby was in existence. I am, right? That's the birth of consciousness in a human body. I am, okay? And then after that I am, the process of conditioning starts. I am, and then language comes, and when language comes, the I am becomes I am a body, I am a person, I am, and then there's a name, right, like that. So when we're talking about paying attention to the I am, we're talking about pay attention to the awareness that doesn't have an identity. Consciousness itself, which is what was the case before the I am became anything other than I am, okay? So that's the I am. Now, with this technique specifically, right, we're talking about how a specific technique to do that, to pay attention to the I am, right? And so this specific technique of paying attention to the I am is to move your point of perception away from away from the one that is been the orientation that almost everybody has, which is that your point of perception is in here, behind the eyes, right? And so this is one of the things that's taken on early in life, is that I'm in here. I've learned that if I'm seeing, I must be behind my eyes. I learned that if I'm hearing, that I must be in here hearing, right? Same thing, if I'm speaking from in here. So the orientation of perception and the orientation of who we are for most people is in here. I'm in my head, right? So that's one of the reasons, by the way, that they talk about as you become clear about your true nature, you come out of your head, and the energy moves down to the heart. Okay? So in this particular technique, the idea is to imagine your perception, instead of being here, imagine your perception is up here, right? And begin to see from up here. Begin to be aware from up here. And if you begin to be aware from up here, now within that awareness is everything that is happening, including the body, including the thoughts, including the feelings, because it's up here now, not in here. And so since it's up here, there's an awareness of all of this, not from in here, but from a point of view outside of the typical orientation. Now, that's the practice as a way of getting out of your head, as a way of getting your perception out of the body, right? Now, it's not something you're going to try and do. If you try and do it, you won't succeed, right? It's something that you will just notice because it's already the case that the awareness is not located in the body. So this is very important. You cannot try and do this. You have to simply notice that the awareness is already the awareness that is aware of everything, and the body is in that awareness. One of the ways that I have talked about this, even before this technique, in the past I have mentioned to you that it is possible for you to be aware of your entire body at the same time, is it not? Yeah, you can do that. And if you're aware of your entire body, your awareness must not be in the body, your body must be in awareness. That's just, that's experientially there, or if you experience it, right? If you check it out, your body is in awareness. That's the awareness that I'm talking about, okay? Now, to do this is a way of getting the point of perception out of the body, but that doesn't mean that the point of perception in the body is not there anymore. That's also there, right? If you experience what I'm talking about, you'll notice that you can be aware. I can be aware from looking from here, and when I'm aware from looking from here, I can actually see my glasses. Okay, so my awareness is panoramic if I'm looking from here. But I can also be aware looking from here. I can be aware of awareness itself. That's the thing here. That's what this is about. Is you see, it has to be the case at some point that you move from the concepts that we speak of to the actual recognition of awareness. That is a very important and necessary occurrence that has to happen in order for you to proceed to experience your true nature, is you have to recognize awareness. And the recognition of awareness is different from the recognition of you as the person with the body and that orientation. It's different from that. And one of the things that I've said here is that what this is about, right, if you practice this, if you have the intention to notice awareness, whether you do it with that particular technique or whether you do it with there are other ways to do this, right? But the thing that you're out to do is notice awareness. If you notice awareness, if you have the experience of noticing awareness, that will change everything. And you'll know the difference when you notice awareness. You'll be seeing things and experiencing things from a different location, from a location of being the awareness rather than something in the awareness. Right? And you'll know that you're doing that because you'll feel the difference. This is what they say when they say, to experience your true nature as awareness is blissful. It feels good to be relieved of the position of being a person. It feels blissful to be relieved. It's freedom from all of the prior circumstances, from all of the prior limitations. And you can, when you practice this, when you notice awareness, right, you can then sit, for example, in formal meditation and further and further release your orientation from being a thing and release your orientation into the experience of the emptiness of awareness itself. And as you do that, you become more and more aware of this, of the emptiness that awareness is, right? And it's very pleasurable. It's a very pleasurable experience. It's called samadhi in India. It's called satori in Zen, right? In Ramana Maharshi's early experiences, this is what he did. He sat in a state of absorption, right? Because he was so blissed out in experiencing being awareness itself that he wasn't interested in anything else but that. Right? It took him years to get over that. right? But after he got over that, he was able to be in the ordinary way of experiencing things at the same time as experiencing that awareness, okay? So I don't know if that, okay. So, but this is very, very important, and this is why I have been saying recently here that for those of you who have been practicing meditation for a while now, and who have been studying and learning about these concepts about your true nature, and about what awareness is, and about the difference it makes, and about how this is the possibility of transcending the limited experience of a human being that most people are living in, right? This is what they talked about in the ancient wisdom teachings. This is what's available to all human beings, and it's available to you, right? And this experience that I'm talking about, which is not actually an experience because experience implies there's an experiencer, right? But this phenomena, this possibility that I'm talking about, it's very important for you to understand, to keep remembering, it's always here. It's not an achievement. It's not going to happen. It's happening all the time, and it's only happening in the present moment. It's always here. That's one thing. The other thing that's important to understand and to remember is the thing that makes it seem difficult to have this happen, the thing that makes it seem difficult to have this happen is that it's not only here all the time, but it's you. That's the thing that makes it difficult to have this happen, because the way the typical orientation that people have is that it's not me, I'm going to experience it. It's not me, it will be me. It's not me, but I can become it. You know, something like that, right? But the thing that makes it difficult to experience is that you're what you're trying to be, you see? You are the awareness that you're trying to experience, right? So it's not a matter of accomplishing anything, it's a matter of letting go to what's already the case. It's too easy, that's the problem. It's too easy. The way you do this is not to do anything. The way you do this is to be what you already are. How do you do that? Well, you don't, there's no how to do, there's no way to, you know what I mean? How do you do something that doesn't require any doing? You don't do it. It's already the case. It's just a matter of noticing it and letting the truth be what it is, letting the truth be the truth. You know, and then once you have this recognition, right, then the next thing is to start to practice a dynamic form of meditation where now you're not needing to formally be in this process of meditation that eliminates a lot of the extraneous noise and interruption and so forth. But now that you recognize awareness, you have it all the time, and now you want to experience it as you're moving through your life. You want to experience it as things are happening, and most of all, you want to experience it at the times when you would normally be in conflict or under duress or stressed out or angry, you know, depressed, upset, anxious. More than anything, that's where you want to be able to experience it, because if you experience it then, you will experience the possibility of not being identified with those emotional states. You'll experience the possibility those emotional states can arise, right? But you won't be inside the emotional state, you'll be outside the emotional state. This is the metaphor that I was talking about before, where we're talking about, you know, being the ocean instead of the wave, right? The normal way that people are experiencing their life as a human being is to be the wave, right? To be where the activity is happening all the time, right? The wave is always in action, right? The wave is always in action, right? And so when there's emotions and there's disturbance and there's upset, and you're isolated as the wave that's in the middle of all this turbulence, right? It's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable. And you're separated from the ocean because you don't know you're the ocean, right? And so it's like everything's happening to you. But when you discover this awareness and you recognize that you're the ocean, not the wave, it doesn't mean the wave doesn't exist anymore, because the ocean and the wave are both water. They're both the same thing. right? But now the wave is something that's happening within the ocean that is much smaller and less intense, right? So that the emotional activity that goes on with this wave now is held within the context of an infinitely greater body of water. And that infinitely greater body of water is calm and still. And this is why when you recognize the awareness is always calm and still, because it's an infinite space in which the wave is occurring. So this is very important, because it's the next step. Meditation, when we begin to practice meditation, primarily what you're actually practicing is stabilizing your ability to pay attention. But now you want to use that ability to pay attention to do what? To pay attention to the truth, to pay attention to awareness itself, and begin to recognize that that's what you are. And begin to live as the truth, begin to live as that awareness that you are. That's the fulfillment of the possibility of a human life. And when you recognize that, and when you experience that, right, and when you begin to live in that, as that, right, it's transformational. Everything appears different than it did. Everything becomes easier. Everything becomes more enjoyable. Everything becomes less serious than it did before. And you begin to see things with the eyes of wisdom. You begin to see things with the eyes of the truth. You begin to see things as they actually are. And one of the things you see as it actually is that what's happening all the time is an appearance. There is no actual world. There is no actual world. It's changing all the time. It's a changing appearance all the time that's happening as a function of the way you're seeing it. And when you see it for what it is, you see that it's an appearance, right? And when you see it for what it is, you don't interact with it with the same seriousness and with the same fear and concern that you did before. And ultimately, because the thing that is the thing that sets up the whole situation, if you're really going to be honest and looking at the reality of it all, the thing that sets up the whole situation is your death. That's what sets up the whole situation, because the challenge is, can you wake up before the body dies? Right? That's the challenge. Can you wait? And so human beings go out of their way to deny and distract themselves from their mortality. That's a big aspect of the whole human endeavor, right? Is to distract yourself and deny your mortality, right? So that's the motive for this. Because why? Because if you recognize and experience yourself as awareness, there is no death. And the recognition of that and the experience of that is liberating and deepens, right? So that as time passes and the body is losing its energy and the body is getting ready to die, right? You don't have the experience of dying. See, if you're, now watch, this is so obvious if you get it, right? If you recognize yourself as awareness and you recognize that the body is in awareness instead of the awareness being in the body, you're having an out of the body experience. It's happening all the time. It's just a question of whether you notice it or not. When I was a kid, early on in my life, during one of the experiences I was having, I was with a friend and I was sitting and we were kind of meditating, and I noticed that he was getting closer and closer to me until his face and my face were face to face, right? But neither of us moved, right? That's an example of, for whatever reason, something shifted there, and my perception was no longer limited to being behind my eyes, okay? And after that happened, I remembered something. When I was a kid, I used to do that all the time. But when I was a kid, I didn't know that it was unusual. I would relax my perception and look at something in the distance. And as I sat there and relaxed my perception would leave and move closer and closer until I was right up against it looking at it. And I just thought it was fun. And I forgot that I did. I forgot that I had those experiences until I had this experience when I was a young adult. So these things do happen. But the point that I'm trying to get across is that it's not something that's going to happen, it's something that is happening, right? And the reason it seems to be something that's going to happen is because you're oriented to a limited view of what's happening. And to lose that orientation and become open to an unlimited view of what's happening is the experience of being who you are. That's the experience of being who you are. And it's not a matter of becoming godlike in terms of you're able to read minds and mind travel and astral travel and all that. No. The purpose, this is a very important thing to understand. The purpose of this is not to become Superman or Superwoman. The purpose of this is to experience the ordinary bliss of being awareness itself. Right? Those kinds of things that yogis experience after living in caves and practicing all this esoteric stuff. Anybody could really do that if you put that kind of energy and intention into learning how to do those kinds of psychic things, right? I don't give a shit about that. I'm interested in just being happy. I'll take that, you know what I mean? I'll take the regular circumstances that I have, right? And be able to enjoy my life and be happy and know that I'm not going to die. What could be better than that? I don't have to fly, right? That's the real prize, is to wake up and discover the truth. That's already the case, you know, that death isn't real. Happiness is something that's always happening. The question is, are you allowing yourself to have that experience? Or is your experience going to be determined by circumstances, you know, by the mood you're in, right? By the conditioning that you have that comes up and, see, because the thing about this is happiness can exist with all that happening. Happiness can exist. You can be in a situation where there's mental anguish, right? There's emotional distress, and you're happy. Because you're not trying to be human. You're not trying to be anything other than being human. That's just the way being human shows up sometimes, right? But when you know what you are as awareness, you're not in the middle of the storm anymore, right? You're the sky in which the storm is happening that's unaffected by any weather conditions. It's a different thing. It's a context for experiencing life. So I really encourage you to look at the videos that I linked you to. The one that's with Benito Massaro describing this technique of the I am, right? And by the way, I've gotten some feedback from some people that said, you must be kidding to say that we should listen to this guy, right? Because he's a very eccentric character, right? And he gets a lot of negative reactions from people. But I didn't say to listen to this guy. I said to pay attention to what he's saying, right? I don't want you to listen to me. I want you to listen to what I'm talking about, right? And that's what you have to get clear about. If you're reacting to the person that's talking, you're in your mind, right? The truth is a pathless land. You know, one of the things that Krishnamurti harped on is don't follow me, that's stupid. But listen to what I'm pointing to and look for yourself to see what I'm pointing to. That's the truth, and that's what's important, not the person saying it. This is very important because there's a lot of people out there now that are getting criticized and being called frauds and all this, right? I don't give a shit about any of that. I'll listen to anybody, and if I hear the truth, it's valuable and useful. I don't care what mouth it's coming out of. You've got to really get that clear so that you don't stop yourself from being exposed to things that could be very valuable for you. All right? Okay, see you next time.